Jesus Christ. Hello and welcome back to the Sticky Floor podcast. I'm Sima, joined by Callum
How's it going?
and Daniel.
What's up? Are we bringing it back? No, we're not. Okay.
Nah,
Um,
mate, wait another 5 years.
Fair enough.
this week we'll be discussing the film Dear Ex. It's a Taiwanese comedy drama directed by Mag Zhu and Zhu Chi Yen, starring Roy Chu. I'm totally butchering this. Zay Ying Zhang, Spark Chen, and Joseph Wang. But before we jump into that, let's go over what we've been watching this week. Callum.
This week I rewatched the 1985 horror film Reanimator. It's a lot of fun. It's a nice tight wee script. It's got no pretense about it. It's a bit sleazy. It's a bit campy, but you know that's all part of the fun. Have either of you seen Reanimator?
No, I can't say I have.
All right. It used to be on Netflix, but it's not anymore, unfortunately. Should definitely give it a watch. What about the rest of you?
Daniel?
Last night I watched Victoria, the German film. I think it was 2015, and it's it's all shot in the one sequence of one shot. It never cuts. It's magical. I recommend you both watch it. It's like 2 hours long. I don't want to spoil it either, but it's ace.
That's brilliant. I haven't watched any films this week, but I did watch the entirety of Russell T Davies's new show for Channel 4, It's a Sin, which centres around the 1980s AIDS pandemic. Epidemic, I guess. It's incredible. Totally recommend it. Russell T Davies at his best. Absolutely heartbreaking. Definitely recommend. Yeah, definitely watch it. It's brilliant.
The wee guy that's in the Riot Club's also in it.
Yeah, Ollie Alexander from the band Years and Years.
That put me off it.
Yeah.
I just don't like his face.
It's fantastic. You should watch it. It's a really well done drama. Yeah. There's nothing else really to say about it. It's just really, really good. Definitely recommend it.
There's a movie I watched this week as well called BPM, the French one, and that's
180 BPM? Is that what it is?
Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got that on DVD. I still need to watch it though.
It's good.
Definitely give it a watch. Right.
I also watched the first episode of Bling Empire. It was terrible.
I know what that is.
It's got the distinct honour of being the very first American reality TV show that centres on Asian Americans, and to be honest, it kind of killed.
Just as vacuous as the rest.
Yes, it destroyed all the illusions I have about Asians Americans. I kind of thought they were above all that, but no.
An American is still an American, Callum.
I know, but I kind of feel like, I don't know, that all that Botox and filler and all that kind of shit, I kind of thought was, like I said, I'd never seen an Asian American who had that kind of thing done to them in the flesh before. So,
breaking down stereotypes. Good on them.
Exactly. It's very, in fact, yeah, it's very, what's the word? It's very ahead of its time, ahead of the curve in a way.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well.
Anyway. Simon's currently got her mouth full, so she'll be with you shortly.
I haven't eaten properly today, I'm sorry. Jumping back into the film, Dear Ex, it's 100 minutes long, Taiwanese drama kind of comedy about a woman and her child looking for their husband and father's lover who has the life insurance money from the guy that died. I'm doing a terrible job of explaining this.
You are doing it. It is about well, can I give a better summary of the plot? Because I would say it is about a 14-year-old boy caught between his mum and his deceased father's male lover. I should say something about the insurance.
No,
kind of.
I think you've done a good job.
Should I
Okay.
give my summation now?
Yeah,
Or?
go ahead.
No.
Okay, first thoughts about it, Daniel.
I liked it. It was nice. I mean, the second act was it dragged quite a bit actually. I
Mm.
found some of the flashbacks. I was just like, another flashback. But in the end, it did leave me with a wee cozy feeling. Simon, what about you?
I do agree. It was a bit flashback heavy, and at times that was like it was really good to see that and kind of see the life before the events currently happening. And at the same time, it's like it could have done without the amount we were given. I really love this film though. I love the way it's shot. I love the acting. I especially the mother character. I can't quite remember her name, but her and the actress who portrays her are absolutely incredible. A real highlight for me because of that kind of just the amount of shit she's going through right now. I think it's perfectly executed. Callum.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I just thought it was a nice wee tight story. It's a bit predictable and a bit melodramatic and sentimental in points. And I do agree for you, there was too much use of the flashbacks. I think that's a storytelling technique that should be used sparingly.
Yeah.
But otherwise, yeah, I enjoyed it. Nice wee film.
Fantastic.
Agreed.
Right. So let's get on to the main themes of the film, which is family, betrayal. Yeah, let's discuss that. So how did we feel the film kind of went about in portraying the relationship between the mother and son characters and that kind of like pivotal point in your life where you're going through adolescence with your mother? With also a dead father.
Thought it was pretty believable. I mean, obviously their relationship is quite extreme in some ways, but it's not like, especially in the beginning, they're kind of the antagonism between those two characters. I did find it very believable, and I've just said that. Yeah, and I kind of felt for both of them. They're both flawed. In fact, that's the thing about I like this sort of dynamic. Every character has understandable why they're angry the way they are, but they all don't deal with it in the best way they could. So I felt for all of them and also was angry at all of them for different reasons.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I felt that both the mum and the son were both, like the son was a wee dick and the mom was just, a bit too much. But as he said, I gave them they're multifaceted people.
Yeah.
Was this?
Yeah. I like how they're not supposed to be like good people because they're complex and realistic. Like this is a situation they're going through together and they're obviously gonna butt heads no matter what. Like I liked how that was portrayed where they don't like one doesn't have like the moral upper hand because they're both struggling and they're both taking it out on one another. I found that dynamic really interesting, and the kind of mothers like building hysteria around the situation as well. Something I found quite realistic as well. Just from like me as a person and seeing my mother like kind of handle situations the same way. The kind of like building tension throughout the film as well. I really enjoyed that because it would like kind of dissipate at times and then build up again. It was like maybe they're gonna like kind of go easy on one another and then they wouldn't.
What?
Why don't
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say with that, like, although there is a building pressure, there's always her turning up at this guy's door, making sure that the son's all right. So
yeah, she's still his mother no matter what. Like that is like her intrinsic role. Like it doesn't matter that he's like walked out on her. Like she's his mother and she either feels a pressure to look after him or it's from her love for him. It's a really complex relationship, but I like, and especially jumping ahead a little bit, where that scene in the theatre where he asks her, "Why are you my mother?" and she says, "I ask myself the same thing," or something along the similar lines. I found that really like powerful and impactful in the kind of where we were in the film when that happened, just because the societal pressure on mothers to perform like perfectly, and now she now she's on her own with this. Like, she doesn't even have, despite her partner leaving her before, she can't even turn to him anyway because he's gone. I found like that really like it pulled on my heartstrings a little bit. Why don't we talk about, before we get on to the male lover, why don't we talk a bit about the father, because he, although he himself is not around in the film a lot, it's his presence that like stays the entire time, if you know what I mean. So Callum, what did you feel about that?
I mean, once everything kind of got revealed through plot points, I kind of felt like him leaving all the insurance to the character of Jay was a bit of a dick move, because
Yeah.
like I understand, right? Jay looked after him to the end, right? But you know, she needs that money more than he does, or well, I mean, they both need money because they're both in financially kind of dire straits. But
Yeah.
I guess
you know,
the reason why he gave him the money is just because obviously he owed a lot of money to other people because he was giving the dad some money, and that's why. That's the reason.
yeah, oh yeah, because of the kidney. Was it a kidney
Yeah.
transplant?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I mean, that is fair enough, but yeah, I still think that. I mean, understandably, she wasn't very nice to him towards his later days. But yeah, just like, because I just know what it's like when money, when the sort of without going too deep, I know what it's like when someone dies and who gets the money becomes a question. You know, and I know how much stress that can cause and how much drama that can cause between people. So I was kind of annoyed that he just left it all to Jay. But like, apart from that, I don't know. I feel like he was more like a narrative device than an actual character. Like he was just the thing that keeps the three characters that connects the three characters rather than a fleshed out character in its own right.
I mean, until the flashbacks, I think the film would have been stronger if he was just left in the past and he was left as a character in the film, but we're actually seeing him ever. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I have much more to say on that. If I do, it will come to me later on.
Okay. Daniel? Anything else to add?
Dad. Yeah, I actually felt he was like one of the worst actors. Not to be too negative or anything, but I didn't like his performance out of a lot of them. I mean,
I just say that it's sometimes quite hard to gauge someone's performance when they're speaking in a foreign language. Not always, but sometimes it's hard because you don't really, because obviously people in different accents and dialects will inflect in different ways.
you're also
it's
on the subtitles.
Yeah, and also, can I say something about the subtitles? I realised for probably cultural reasons there'll be different references that it's not going to make sense to an English-speaking audience. But there's a few times I noticed where I noticed the subtitles. I thought they're probably not actually saying that. Like when she asks about the beneficiary to Jay in the beginning, and he breaks it up in the subtitles. He's breaking it up into two words, something and fishery, and I'm like, well, he can't be saying that, but. Because those aren't going to, in Taiwanese, those aren't going to sound like those two separate specific words. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I was trying to, when I was watching that scene again, I was trying to gauge how they go about that, but I don't know. I don't speak Thai. Well, it's Mandarin, isn't it? I don't speak Mandarin, so I don't know. It could be like a pun that is mistranslated. So.
Maybe, but then
which is,
it is often the case when, well, I can only speak from an English-speaking audience. Like, I don't know, I take it one of you at least will have seen La Haine or La Haine.
Yeah.
I've watched that. Well, the version I watched it with a French person, and they said to me a few times he didn't actually say that. So I'm guessing there's just some French cultural reference in there, and they've just had to change it because imagine America. Oh no, this was in British English. They just decided that a British audience isn't going to get that, so they just changed it or something.
Yeah, that does happen.
See, on that, like, I'm terrified. This is if I ever get to make films, it'll probably be in Scottish slang, the dialogue. I'm kind of terrified that when it does get translated into other countries, it's just going to be like toned down. And I guess there's no like change in that, is there? Xavier
Probably not.
Dolan does his own subtitles. Like he does the translations from French
Yeah.
into English just 'cause he doesn't want someone fucking
Well,
it
maybe
up.
you could do that then.
I'm
I
like,
mean,
Do your own translations.
yeah, I mean, I've even seen it in English language films. Like, I don't know if any of you have seen Human Traffic, but in the American release on it, they changed. It got redubbed, so one character said Jeremy Kyle instead of Trisha. If you don't know who Trisha Goddard is, not Jeremy Kyle, Jerry Springer.
oh, right, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's what I meant. And I just find, like we watch American stuff all the time, and so we're not going to get every pop culture reference in America, right?
No, but everything's pandered to them and like bent around their fucking,
Yeah,
their
and
knowledge and their pop culture knowledge. It's so annoying.
it is annoying, but then also you have to appreciate that American media is basically all English-speaking media now, almost.
Don't say that, please.
But it's the
really
truth.
depressing.
Listen to how everybody speaks. Everybody speaks American now. People saying elevator instead of lifts. Boils my blood.
That's your biggest nitpick.
Elevator. Yes. Well, no, but that's how it starts. Like, I get annoyed.
First it was the English, now it's the Americans.
Then it's not the car park, it's the parking lot. It just goes on and on.
And it's not rubbish, it's garbage.
Oh, exactly.
Ugh.
It is garbage.
Oh,
anyway, we're going up. There's a Scottish band called Garbage.
Are they garbage?
I couldn't tell you. I don't listen to them. Anyway, back to the film.
Where were we? The kind of father figure. I don't have a lot of points to make that haven't already been said. I think maybe not necessarily take all the flashbacks out with him involved, but keep it kind of like I liked what they did with the first initial, not necessarily flashback, but with his presence there in the male lover's flat while the son's there, and it's like the conversation over the song and the guitar. I liked how they did that. If they'd kept it more to that kind of like vibe, I guess, I think that would have been slightly more impactful. Or just tone down the amount of flashbacks. And my biggest gripe is the level of flashbacks, especially towards the end. It becomes oversaturated. Whereas I feel like even if they paced them out across the film a bit more, it wouldn't have been so heavy-handed.
Can I say one thing about the dad in the flashbacks? Towards the end, in fact, no, sort of at the midway point, they see that it shows that I don't understand why after he broke up with the mum, he broke up with Jay, and then he went away, and then he came back, and Jay punched him upon their first meeting, but then he took him in or something.
No clue.
Do you remember there's that flashback scene where Jay's like in an alleyway outside a bar, and then the dad rocks up, and Jay cracks him?
Yes.
And I think in the voiceover, the son says something about this is when his dad became so-and-so 2.0.
Okay.
Do you remember this? And near the end,
cracking him. I don't remember the.
And near the end, there's a flashback at the theatre school where he says, like, I need a normal marriage and a normal wife and something. So he presumably leaves Jay. Mm-hmm. So it comes across to me that he left his wife and then he left Jay as well.
I think the flashbacks were out of order as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think the scene where he's telling his wife he wants a divorce is because because it is after, because when he's in the kind of theatre school telling Jay these things, then it continues to a flashback where Jay's watching their wedding.
Was that their wedding? I thought that was just another random couple's wedding.
No, that was their wedding.
Yeah,
so the theatre scene and the wedding are before, obviously, because you can't have a wedding. But,
right. Okay, I didn't realise that. Okay, that meant they'd known each other for a while then.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I was
thinking that down a pretty decent movie as well. Having put that out. Yeah,
it's just I kind of agree with Morty from Rick and Morty. I think a story should just start where it starts a lot of the time.
I agree. Yeah.
I'm not saying there's never a place for flashback, but like for instance, I hate films that start at the ending where the main character's about to be shot or something.
Oh yeah, I don't like when it starts at the ending. That's shite. But like maybe
Memento, you seen that?
No, I've never got round to Memento. I know it's
the best example of what you're describing there.
Working well.
Yeah, working amazingly.
Okay.
Well.
Yeah. Okay. I was thinking more along the lines of the Football Factory.
I've not seen it.
You never seen Football Factory?
No, I've never seen it.
Sorry excuse for a man. It's the film that made Danny Dyer a household name.
Oh, no, I thought that was Human Traffic as well.
No, he got his start in Human Traffic, but that was his first, I think that was his first starring role. That's when Danny Dyer became Danny Dyer, the man, the myth, the legend, the joke.
Okay. This is a Danny Dyer themed podcast we're getting into today.
And when did we mention him earlier?
Human Traffic.
Oh yeah.
Back to the film.
Yeah.
Back to the film. So, how do we feel about Jay as a character, the male lover? Callum, thoughts?
Yeah, I liked him. I mean, obviously he wasn't without his flaws. None of them were. And he was a bit of a dick in his own right, but then but I was going to say at first, is he the moral centre of the film? But then again, there isn't really a moral centre to the film. But I suppose he's the most balanced out of the three of them, because he even tells the boy not to disrespect his mum, even when she's being horrible to him.
Yeah, he also feeds and clothes him, which is pretty decent.
Yeah, and it's also, I'm kind of going off topic a bit. This is one thing that's interesting. Even when Jay criticizes the mum in front of the boy, he defends her, which on the surface would seem like a contradictory, but that's almost kind of realistic. It's like, nobody can criticize her but me, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm the same. I'm even with like anyone that I know and like care for, if like I can talk shit at them, but other people can't. That's like,
it's a sacred
it's a sacred bond of chatting shit at one another. But no one else can do that. Daniel?
Well, the character of Jay had really nice style. I remember that much. I liked one of his floral t-shirts. That was nice.
I really like that kind of lace over shirt he was wearing.
That's
I like that as well.
That was a belter. But on the actual character himself, he seemed to be like quite empathetic at points and the complete opposite at other points. I found the relationship between him and his mother probably like the most like emotionally dissatisfying parts of the movie. I'm jumping way ahead to like the end where they're in the theatre.
Yeah, I do want to discuss that separately.
Okay. Well, other than that, I don't really have any thoughts on Jay. What about you?
Really? I get what you mean about his kind of erratic jumping between like kind of, like Callum said, almost a moral centre and then completely opposite. I feel like that is to do with his grieving process at times, and also like how young he is at the start, like the flashbacks. He's clearly he's obviously going through a lot. He's the mistress, as the son said. But he's deeply grieving someone he really loved, and he also has his lover's mother and son, not wife and son, on his back now, while he's trying to recover from his grief. So he's definitely an interesting character. I thought he was quite dynamic. At times, I was like, tone down the kind of aggression, but I get where he's coming from with it.
Yeah, like when he manhandled one of his actors.
Yeah, I was like, come on. You can't manhandle your actor, man.
He's doing his best Danny Dyer impression. See just the Jay's relationship with the wee man. I forget his name. The wee
wee man.
That relationship's really nice as well. Just as he lost his brother and now he's got this wee guy. to keep him company. There is something really beautiful about that.
It's a really interesting dynamic, and as it grows through the film, you get a sense that they are like genuinely starting to care about one another, or at least kind of using one another to kind of recreate the bond they once had with different people. Which is they're like a surrogate brother-father relationship, which is interesting.
Well, he refers to himself as his stepmom, remember?
Yeah. Also that, which is great.
Yeah, I think the thing about Jay's brother, I feel that was more of a... Well, actually, I never kind of thought of that as being sort of significant to his character. I just feel like it was more of a throwaway... Not a throwaway remark, obviously, it's significant, but... Like, I never thought like him losing his brother affected him, because it's just a wee remark by his mum.
Well, it gives insight to when she tells the mother, it gives insight to why he acts the way he does sometimes. So I think it has affected him, at least like kind of like subconsciously, at least when like we kind of meet him. Yeah. On the topic of Jay's mother, how do we feel about that kind of subplot and the relationship between them, and a lot of unsaid and kind of unfulfilled kind of story around them, Callum?
Yeah, I think... I suppose her mother just kind of served a very specific... His mother, sorry, served a very specific thing to the plot. So there wasn't really much to her as a character.
Nothing to her as a character.
Yeah. But, you know, it was nice. She was what?
Cute. She was cute.
Okay. You like him old?
There was quite a few old wee Asian women in this film.
Yeah. I kind of thought that when she got introduced, I thought this was going to be the thing that made the mother character, like as in the female lead character, soften to him for just meeting his mum.
Yeah, I was the same.
And so it kind of struck me as... So within the next scene or two, where she tells him, just out of spite, she decides to tell him that tell his mum that he's gay. That just... I felt like how that was built, that wasn't built up to in a very believing way, because what do you call it? Because at that point, between that point and the beginning, Jay hadn't actually done anything to upset her.
Well, they also ask you to make a very big jump on the bus when they're talking about it, and the mum that's lost a husband, she would be in that situation if she's thinking, she's like, no, I'm not at all her, like, his girlfriend. Don't get that mixed up, because she hates him at this point. So the director's asking you to make a very big jump, like, to believe that she just wouldn't say anything, or would be cut off and not say anything.
Well, it's not even so much that. It's like, okay, at this point in the plot, she's accepted that her son's staying at this man's house, right? And they seem to be just in the last couple of scenes they were with together, they seem to be cooperating to a point. So they weren't being as antagonistic towards each other. So it just struck me as if why she suddenly is going to just do this out of spite. Like I'm saying,
necessarily, sorry to cut you off. I don't necessarily think it was out of spite. I think she was using it as leverage to see how she could manipulate the situation to her own benefit to get the money.
I forgot about the theatre. I forgot about the theatre scene.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it's out of spite. I think she's seen a situation she can like take into her own hands and like use it for her and her son's future.
I mean, it's extortion is what it is.
Yeah, basically. But she's doing what she has to do, and I feel like that really shows like who she is as a character, because she clearly has her own kind of like societal prejudices against Jay, but also how much of that is just from her heartbreak of being left for him. How much of that is actually like what she believes, versus how she's kind of like acting out because she feels betrayed. I don't think it's spiteful. I think it's her.
Well, it was a bit spiteful.
Oh, it's a little bit spiteful, but it's not purely spite. She's not purely fueled by spite.
No, not purely, but
Also
that
grief.
that kind of. But
And
when she
grief.
that really kind of, I did lose quite a bit of sympathy for her when she did that.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Because I mean, this is the thing about it being predictable, and it's not actually. To be honest, when I actually got to the end, I thought, all right, so they don't. Because usually in these films, you kind of think, okay, they're all going to make peace with each other at some point, and they're probably going to become, and they'll probably eventually all become friends in the end, and that didn't happen, but they did make peace in their own kind of quiet way. So, so the ending wasn't as sentimental as it could have been, which is what I did like.
Yeah, because it's not kind of like about carrying out like the tropes. It's about a kind of more realistic interpretation of the scenario.
Yeah, I mean, because that's just the thing. Like, you're not going to be friends with somebody who you've.
No.
I mean, I'm not saying it could never happen in the fullness of time, but it's unlikely to happen over the course of a few weeks.
Yeah, you're not going to be suddenly busy mates with your love rival for years.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because of like the trauma that it put you through. Like, you're like, maybe it'll happen one day, like you said, but she's not gonna like, go round to his for dinner like on a fucking Wednesday. So I liked how it was kind of like they kind of removed one another from each other's lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just on the end scene then, so see when we're talking about how the ending wrapped up, the house is so much cleaner by the end. I think there's like a montage or whatever. But see the way the production designers were able to make it so much more claustrophobic and like yucky feeling. That was brilliant.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of the cinematography? I thought it was
I thought it was stunning.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Like, it wasn't the best I've ever seen, but it was all right. It was nice.
I thought it was really like visually enticing. I really loved it. Just the kind of scenes of them walking about, like the kind of like area of Taiwan they're in. I thought it was really beautiful.
And also the like visual effects that were used. We've not even talked about the illustrations.
Yeah, I've got quite a bit to say about that.
The opening title sequence, you've got to admit, Callum, that was beautiful. Like when the guitar starts playing its electric guitar.
Yeah, I like the music. That song that they sing throughout it, that's in the sort of stage play, that ballet song.
Yeah.
The tune I thought was very familiar, and then I realised it's not the same tune. It just kind of. Have you seen Brazil?
No.
Terry Gilliam.
Okay, it's Terry. Yes, Terry Gilliam. So there's a song which is a real song called Brazil, and you hear it throughout the film in different kind of versions and renditions, and the tune is a little bit similar. So, and also you hear this song in various renditions and versions throughout it as well. So I suppose it's just I subconsciously thought it was the same thing, even though it wasn't. Yeah, the sort of visual design of this, where this stylistically, this is very similar to a sort of 2000s-ish indie film with the kind of sketchy sort of animation style, especially the logo. It has that kind of sketchbook kind of style, and I don't mind it, but I kind of thought, it's kind of this kind of looks like a film from 10 years beforehand, stylistically, but from America. So I suppose that's where the filmmaker got their influence from, I would guess, because it's got that, Juno, Napoleon Dynamite kind of, the films I'm talking about.
It's strange that like they've made that decision tonally, because it doesn't really match what's happening in the film.
Like, those films are quite different from like this, like the film we're discussing. Like,
this is more of a drama than a comedy.
Yeah. It's called a drama comedy on Wikipedia, but there are very limited moments of actual like comedy. It's quite.
I didn't laugh.
Yeah, I didn't really find myself laughing that much.
I think there was like one time where I laughed. It's quite, it's quite an emotionally straining film, and there are points where you actually feel uncomfortable. So I don't know why it's called a comedy. Maybe it's a tonal thing that we don't get. But Yeah, I like the illustrations. I like the animation. It kind of gave that sense that although the story involves like very mature themes and like the kind of story of these two adults battling over this insurance money, our narrator and our protagonist is still a young boy, and it still is about like how this affects his life. So I kind of like that.
See, on
Yeah,
that, like, that's the reason I kind of didn't like it, is because I thought, see, if they did use that, it would be okay if then they told the story from the point of view of the young boy, but it kind of just goes throughout the three characters. So I think in order for that to work, you would have to set it from the child's perspective.
yeah, because like
Yeah.
by the beginning of the third act, that perspective, that his voiceover and the sketchy animation kind of disappears up until the very last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So I think that is that's possibly one of the problems I had with the film, like sort of balance, and we don't actually hear from his character for quite a bit as well. So I feel like balancing the input and the perspectives of these three characters could have been done a bit better, because then it creates a kind of tonal and sort of narrative inconsistency.
Do we want to expand on the cinematography as a whole? I know we touched on it, but we didn't expand on it any further.
I mean, I thought it was a nice looking film and there were some nice shots in it, but like nothing that blew me away.
Yeah.
I think I watched this Hang Sang-soo film called Tales of Cinema, and it was really gritty, and it's Korean, it's not Taiwanese, I think, or maybe it's Japanese, sorry, but that film was so fucking depressing, and it made the kind of set, now the streets in like places like Taiwan, these Asian countries that they kind of look mental with the way that those wee balconies outside every window, you know, and like that can look kind of claustrophobic, but they made it look beautiful. And also the theatre scenes especially were really well lit.
Yeah. I liked how it did just look like a community theatre kind of production. Like we've all seen like productions like that. We all know how kind of run down. I like how they didn't like try and make it like bigger than it is, because so often with kind of like smaller like theatre productions they try and like amp it up, but the costumes were kind of naff and it was all over the place. And I liked how they went about with that.
I was surprised to see the amount of people that actually showed up to the theatre performance.
Yeah.
It was only a handful of people, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I was expecting a smaller crowd.
Okay.
You would
I had no expectations.
Like
yeah,
less people there.
Yeah.
Were you? I thought there was like 5 people in the audience. I was like, oh, that's a shame.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw the show. It's like not that great. It's kind of shit.
All right, I couldn't tell.
But yeah.
No. I agree. Yeah, it was all. Like I said, this is a good looking film.
Okay. Well, do we have any other thoughts we want to go over before we wrap it up?
No, I think I've said pretty much all I can say on this. Thought it was the light was a bit oversaturated, especially in the flashback scenes. I mean, I know they do that with flashbacks to make everything seem a bit hazy, but could have been a bit less oversaturated.
Well, the way they transitioned was quite stylish for a film that really shouldn't be that stylish. The way they used the Steadicam and they moved from, like, I remember this one hospital scene, but it's a flashback.
Yeah.
There's a few things like that. Yeah. Also, remember the bit where he's got the guitar, and this is whilst he was talking to the boy, and then pretty sure this is the first time you see the dead father character on screen. At first I thought, is he having a conversation with himself? Because at one point they actually cut back to the boy whilst he's having this flashback, and I'm like, is he just talking to himself in front of this little boy?
Well, I think they're trying to like set up a kind of uneasy like environment where it's like they're both like haunted by the ghosts of this man. So at least I think that was what they were trying to achieve. Like there's still the ghost of his father and his lover like kind of like hovering about the place, and there's this weird unspoken kind of like dynamic between the two.
Not a literal ghost, but yeah.
No, not a literal ghost.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, we forgot to say this is a horror film, folks.
Oh, yeah. Major plot point. Sorry about that. Everyone dies at the end. So other than the kind of oversaturation of the flashbacks. Any other final notes
But the
before we wrap
mall,
up?
I've got one more thing. I don't think we talked that much about the mall. Like, so see the actual Jay's mall, right? The way it's set up for the ending, it kind of makes it seem as if like she maybe wasn't totally cool with him being a homosexual. Then that's him accepting him by coming to see his play. I was
Well, she wasn't cool with it.
Was she not? Because I never got that
No,
impression.
no, it was explicitly stated on the bus when the two mothers are talking, and she's saying how thankful she is that Jay has found a girlfriend or like a life partner, and
Aye,
she's
but it
like, "Well,
doesn't.
you hear on the news all the time these men that love men and women that love women."
You see that?
Yeah, it's
Like,
very like that. That is the only mention of it.
that struck me. Like, I don't know. Like, I've never been to Taiwan. I don't know what attitudes to homosexuality are like in Taiwan. But like the way she described that, I'm like, that's like an old person from like decades ago describing homosexuality. Like men
She
who
is
go.
an old person.
No, but you know what I mean? Like, even an old I mean, obviously, I don't want to compare two countries that might be very culturally different, but like, even a woman her age today would just, even if she wasn't, even she was a bit uneasy with gay people, would just say gay. She wouldn't, what do you call it? She wouldn't euphemize it like that, or she wouldn't be candid
I
in how
don't
she described
necessarily
it.
think that's euphemizing it. It's quite a literal definition.
Well, yeah, but that's such a, like, you know, she's sort of being kind of discreet in how she describes it, if you know what I mean. And I'm
Yeah.
just saying, like, I've old women who've been dead for years now, who I know who were of a who were a bit uneasy with it. Like, that's how they describe it instead of just saying it outright. So, but this is from years ago. So I'm just saying the way she said that, and I think maybe it's just the type, maybe it's just the culture over there.
I think there's
Maybe.
Whether
no.
it's still kind of taboo for some people just to say it out loud.
Well, I don't think there's any way like actually determining it just because we don't know what it's like in Taiwan. But even it's 2018, you know what I mean? And even 2018, like my grannies are like, you know,
Yeah.
sound.
Yeah.
It just depends culturally. But that is like the only moment it's addressed, other than when Jay is talking to the father character, and they're talking about like secrets and stuff, and it's like, I like you, but I love my mother more. So it's kind of like implied, but like there's so much other stuff going on at the time, you don't really like take it in, because like they have these bigger plot points. The kind of subplot of the possibly homophobic mother of the male lover is very kind of like underdeveloped, and she's only in what 3 scenes as well, and she's not discussed apart from that one other scene.
Yeah. I think the ending scenes is just to show that after you think, oh no, she's gonna, you know, disown her son, but no, she accepts it in the end. So that's just a kind of nice, wee, happy way to tie that off, so the film's not completely depressing.
Yeah, that is true.
I mean, it's not complicated storytelling, but it works for what it is. We haven't said anything about the therapist.
That is true.
Although she's more of an exposition device.
Yeah, that's funny, because I actually thought that it was just a narration from the boy. Like, I didn't realize that it was the therapist he was talking to. And that's what the narration was.
How did we feel about those scenes with the therapist? How do we feel about like her role in the story? Because it's not a very big one. It's more a narrative tool instead of him just talking directly to us. He's talking to her.
I mean, that is often the case with therapist characters. Yeah. I mean, I kind of agree with her mum to a certain point where she says, "Oh, I'm breaking off because you're useless." But then again, we don't actually see her, apart from one time. We don't actually see her giving any actual advice. Like the bit where she poses the question to the boy, "Do you hate, or is it just or do you just not like that you can't control it?" I thought that is a very good point, because I mean, there's very few things I hate these days. Like, you know what I mean? I'm in my 20s. I don't hate anybody, right? It's you know, such a labor-intensive way to feel about anything.
Yeah.
So, and when I think back, and when I would say, like, when I was when I was just a sullen teenager and say, "Oh, I hate this and I hate that," and I'm like, no, I didn't really hate it. I just, and the way she put it is, you just don't like the fact that you're not in control, or it's not your choice. it's not the same.
As
I thought
a,
that was.
on you go, sorry.
I'm just saying. I thought that was a very like. Yes, I thought that was quite a profound point. Yeah, but aside from that, like, yeah, she's just.
Yeah, she's an exposition tool.
Well, as an
we never
exposition tool, we should get more like fucking creative with it, guys. I mean, how many times have we seen a therapist? Like, I watched Say Anything the day when Big Cusack is driving in his car with his tape recorder talking in. That is at least a wee bit more creative.
Yeah. The therapist character almost always is used as like this kind of like the patient's pacing about the room with like the hands behind their back and they're explaining the situation or sat on the couch. We never see the therapist actually therapizing anyone. And it's like that in this again. We see like one good question that she gives the boy, and that's kind of it. So by the end of the film, when he's like, my mother's saying all doctors are liars, especially therapists, you're like,
The phrase you used there, therapizing, I mean, I don't know if that is a real phrase, but it'd be a great movie title for a like serial killer therapist. Or a Denzel Washington
Hannibal.
Equalizer, the therapizer.
Yeah.
The therapizer. I'm gonna therapize you. That's a slasher in the waiting.
Money hoops. Is this a feminist masterpiece, by the way? I might ask this.
Yes.
Does Dear X have girl power?
Can I just? Oh, actually, the title. Who's the Dear X? Like, there wasn't a letter to an X. The letter was to the son, so the title doesn't make any sense.
The literal translation of the Mandarin title is "Who Started Loving Him First?"
Oh, that's a better title, even if it's even if like most Asian titles, when they're translated literally, they're a bit wordy and jumbled.
Yeah, but Dear X, it's like, I guess it's like the ambiguity is like, who's the?
I suppose
it's like, is it the mother? Because an argument like, who's the mistress as well? It's like, which one's the real mistress? But it's like, I feel like who started loving him first is like a little bit more appropriate, because it's not really an ex, it's like divorcee and widower.
Yeah, I mean, they never actually got divorced, remember?
Yeah, you're right. That's so it's the widow and widower.
Yeah,
there's no ex about it.
Well, I suppose the mum was the ex. Yeah, it's not a great title.
Yeah, it's not a great title, I guess. Any other points we want to make before we wrap this up?
I'm good.
Fantastic. Right, well, you've been watching the Sticky Floor podcast. I've been Sima. Daniel's been Daniel.
But I don't think you've been watching it, guys. You've been listening, but I'll let you know that Sima. God.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Callum's been Callum. Tune in next week.
Yeah. Next week I'll be Jemima.
Hopefully. Sorry, my internet broke up there. Tune in next week. Thanks for listening.
Okay, bye.
See ya.